What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Blazers Uprise podcast here on a Friday, January 10th. Blazers don't have a game tonight. They lost last night to the Minnesota Timberwolves. We went in hard in that post-game stream. If you haven't watched it, I suggest you go check it out. There's a lot of juicy, good content in there. I think it will be a pretty good listen for you guys, even though it's 2 hours long. It's a long podcast. I think it's filled with 2 hours of good content. But we're not really going to get into that game today since we covered it on that podcast. We're going to talk about what Brian Windhorst reported today. Alongside that, we'll do our picks against the spread segment. We got 10 games today, so that's going to be a pretty big segment. And then we'll talk about the New York Knicks possibly making a run at Andre Drummond, which I think is pretty funny. That was recently reported. As trade rumors start to percolate more and more, we'll be able to talk about more fresh and brand new rumors. We'll be able to kind of go in a little bit more on news. Right now, this part of the season, though, it's hard to... I gotta turn off my ringtone for you guys. This part of the season, though, it's hard to plan a podcast because you're just waiting for the storm of trade rumors. You're waiting for trades to happen. And it's just kind of the doldrums of the season, especially when this team is playing like this. I'm just waiting for this trade deadline stuff to hit so we can start talking about trade rumor after trade rumor after trade rumor because the storm is on the horizon. It's just not here yet. So anyway, we're going to jump straight into Brian Windhorst reporting that he doesn't think the Portland Trail Blazers will do anything this season. He doesn't think they're going to make a trade. He thinks they're going to hang tight and see how they play with Yusuf Nurkic back. Now, this... I think would be a mistake. I know you think this would be a mistake as well. This would be a huge mistake. If this happens, I will not be supportive of Olshey any longer. I wasn't that supportive of him to begin with, but this would be a huge mistake by Olshey if they didn't make a move. Let's just preface this segment by saying that. But Eric, do you believe Brian Windhorst when he says this? Because Chris Haynes just came out and kind of said the opposite. So what do you believe here?
I mean, I guess I'm thinking with my heart that I want to believe that he's wrong, so I don't want to believe him. I'm praying that he's wrong, because I was already on record last night as saying that you will hear an epic rant from me if a trade does not happen.
That's the silver lining if nothing happens. Yeah. We get to hear Eric Brandt go on some epic rant.
I am going to go off about how... well, we'll get into this in a second, but so the premise of waiting for Nurk is ridiculous to me because there's no reason why you can't move Whiteside and Bazemore and make your team better so that when you get Nurk back, if you're waiting for him to see if you're good or not, you could be a better team with Nurk instead of having to play with guys like Bazemore. It just doesn't make sense. So they better not try to make it work with Bazemore on this team with Nurk and think that that's going to work out.
I know, man. Especially that this isn't what I want to hear the night after Kent Bazemore goes 0 for 8 with who knows how many turnovers. I don't know off the top of my head, but awful turnovers. We need to make a move. I mean, no matter what, we need to make a move. It makes sense from so many different angles. I don't believe Brian Windhorst here, though. Is it Windhorst? I don't know. Windhorst. Windy Horse. But I don't believe him. I believe Chris Haynes. I think Chris Haynes is more plugged into this team. He's covered this team in the past. He's more plugged into Dame and CJ. He's cool with them. But also at the same time, Windhorst might not be getting bad information. It might be Neil Olshey putting a smoke screen out there. So the fact that we hear different things is, makes me believe okay, none of this is really that important.
And Randy Powell is right that it is better to not make a move than to make a bad move. But so I was trying to think of what the possible reasoning for keeping Whiteside and Bazemore would be. Why would you have that approach, right? Mm-hmm. So there's two things I was thinking. One is if you think both or one of those guys is part of your long-term plans, and you're going to try to like re-sign them this summer. And on TV.
Yeah, you saw that. Okay, see, I saw you lose that train of thought. I
Yeah.
saw it happen. I'm waiting for
Zacha.
Zacho to let me know, but just finish that thought.
Yeah.
We'll get into it before we get into our picks
So,
against the spread.
I mean, we both agree that that's like the completely wrong thing to do
Yeah.
is having Whiteside, even if you re-sign those guys for like minimum contracts next year, which we could do even if we traded them, like having those guys around isn't going to be the difference between this season and winning a championship next year. So I don't understand why that would be the goal. And the only chance I think to truly make this team a surefire contender versus kind of on that fringe outside of contention range is to use those guys to make your team better for next year. And if you don't do that, the avenues of doing so are really hard to make up for missing out on that opportunity. So that's why we've been so gung-ho on making those kind of trades since we acquired those guys, basically.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I can think of is we've talked about this a lot too, but like, what if Jody just doesn't want us to be anywhere near the luxury tax, so we're just planning on letting those guys walk? And for me, that always comes back to, okay, then you're just wasting Dame's prime then, and we're not going to contend at all. So, like if that's what they choose, they're basically choosing financials over any possibility of having a good team around Dame, and that would kind of suck as a fan. And I know I'm not going to say anything more about that because I don't know if that's true. That's just the only logical thing I can think of as to why you would keep those guys is to just get a better cap situation moving forward where you're not anywhere close to the luxury tax. But it's such, being a luxury tax limits you a little bit, but you have avenues to make moves. Whereas if you don't have those contracts on your team, we've talked about this before, all you would have is Dame and CJ and Nurk as big contracts to trade, and then you have a bunch of rookies to trade. So if like someone, let's say Karl Anthony Towns became available and Minnesota didn't want CJ, we have no way to get enough money to trade for a guy like that. And it's and that's why you always say to trade, at worst case scenario, trade those guys for someone that has 1 year left on their deal, like an Otto Porter. And it's not necessarily for fit on the team. It's just to prolong that ability to trade for the league.
I like Otto Porter Jr., and I got into this conversation on Twitter today.
Yeah,
I like Otto Porter Jr.'s fit on the team because he regularly shoots over 40% from three. He's a versatile defender at the forward spot, can play the 3 or the 4 effectively. So, in terms of a fit, that's exactly what we need next to Dame and CJ. But he does have his injury concerns. The thing is, if he's injured and never plays for us, then he's an expiring contract next year, which would help us match salary to bring in a star to like try and win next year. You know what I mean? We're going to be in a better position next year to make a win now trade. I think the trade market might be a little bit better. Expiring contracts are going to be a little bit more in demand because the 2021 free agency class is better than the 2020 free agency class. So having an expiring contract next year is valuable. Now people say, oh, you don't have to trade Whiteside or Bazemore. You can just re-sign them to 1 year deals this offseason, then they'd be an expiring contract next year, and then you could use them via trade. But the thing is, if we re-sign Bazemore and or Whiteside to a 1 year deal this summer, then they have a no trade clause, and if they get traded, then that team that brings them in doesn't have their bird rights. It's the same deal when it was the same thing when we traded for Rodney Hood, because Rodney Hood signed a 1 year qualifying offer, which was basically a 1 year deal, and then we traded for him. Basically, if you have a player on bird rights and you re-sign them for only a year, then they have a no trade clause automatically. So that would make things difficult. You know what I mean? It would create some issues there. So I'm of the opinion that even if we I'm of the opinion we at least need to get a couple players on 2-year contracts, so next year they're expiring, and then we can make a win now move. Whether it's even if it's a Gorgie Jang, and maybe we get a second round pick back for Whiteside, Minnesota would have to toss in a little bit of salary, then we'd have $16 million of expiring contract from Gorgie Jang's contract that we could trade outward to help bring in a player, because any team that's trading a star usually wants expiring contracts so they don't have future contractual obligations. We've seen it with Kristaps Porzingis, who got traded for expiring contracts because New York didn't want future money. They wanted to save up money for the offseason. We saw it with the Los Angeles Clippers when they traded Tobias Harris for expiring contracts to save up money for the offseason. Now, obviously, Clippers hit a home run. New York Knicks got absolute dud, but teams want that flexibility. Teams want expiring contracts back for their stars, and they want young assets and picks. You have to trade that expiring contract in order to match salary. So that's the thing. That's what I think we should do. And if we don't do anything, then it puts us in a bind next year. It puts us in a bind this summer. It creates a lot of issues for us. So if we don't do a move at the deadline, it's going to be the worst trade deadline ever, because I got super frustrated when we didn't make moves in past years, but I kind of understood it. Like, how are you going to trade Evan Turner when he has 3 years left, making $18 million a year? You know what I mean? Part of that was like, Olshey, you idiot, you shouldn't have signed him to 4 years for $70 million. But, after the mistake that was 2016, he didn't really have... You
can't change that,
Yeah, he didn't really have many avenues. Now he has expiring contracts. Now he has a ton of, he has avenues. There's no excuse for inaction on Neil Olshey's part. So I'm hoping that Brian Windhorst isn't correct with this report. I'm hoping that Chris Haynes is correct and that we end up moving Whiteside and Bazemore, maybe even other players. We need to reshuffle the deck here at the trade deadline.
Absolutely agree. And yeah, it's not worth, people talk about cap space too, and the most we could get if Hood opts in is about $12 million, and that's not enough to get someone that could make a difference. And the full mid-level exception is about $9.7 million. So you're talking about wasting 2 assets so you can have $2 million more to spend in free agency. That just sounds so dumb.
Yep. And then if you want to bring somebody in, like a star player, say we had the ability to make a trade for them and they're making $30 million, how are we going to match that salary? We'd have to trade one of Nurkic, CJ, or Dame, because whoever we signed with the free agency money is going to be making 12 million, and then Rodney Hood, okay, that gets you up to 18 million. That's still not enough to match salary. So it creates, it'd be really hard for us to match salary for a star, which is why I don't think we should go after 12 to $13 million of free agency. Go over the cap, use the $10 million mid-level exception, almost $10 million mid-level exception. Go over the cap, trading for 2-year contracts that are expiring next year that you can trade outwards in order to match salary. That's the course of action. That's the best course of action. That's really the only course of action if we don't make a win now trade, right now. We gotta set ourselves up to be able to make moves in the future, and we gotta set ourselves up for the future. Inaction would be hurting us now. This roster kind of sucks, and I don't think Whiteside will be good off the bench. I think it will create some issues, but then it will be hurting us for the future as well. So we got to do something. Moving on to, so Zacho I want to ask Zacho a question, okay? If you guys didn't see his comment a little bit earlier, apparently we got called out today on air. It's the same typical crap.
On TV, nice.
I just want to know, did he call us by name? How did he reference us? I want to know. And then I'm going to either have to send Chad doing a DM, or I'm going to have to contact NBC Sports Northwest, honestly, and ask them what their standards are. Because I've literally had to, I guess I need to put it in caps so he sees it, but I've literally said to this guy 10 times that I don't think the only problem is Terry Stotts. But I believe you in that he probably went on TV and called me a clown and a moron and said that I only blame Terry Stotts. Apparently, yeah.
Just his behavior on Twitter alone shouldn't happen for someone that's part of Blazer Broadcasting and runs their pregame show and the postgame fifth quarter and all that stuff.
That's
don't
what
know.
I
It's
mean. I'm
just
going to have to contact some people, ask them what their standards are. I'm not going to be pushed around, man. Tori going at Big Brother. Yeah, I mean, like, I've told the dude many, many times. I used to be a fan of his, so that's why it's kind of disappointing. But I've told him, O'Shea is definitely not the only reason. So the fact that he's, like, saying that...
Stotts.
Or, yeah, that
You said
Stotts...
O'Shea.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I've said numerous times, Stotts is definitely not the only reason we're struggling. He's just one of many reasons we're struggling. So, but like he'll be the type of person to go on air and say, yeah, these morons at Blazers Uprise, these clowns think that Terry Stotts is to blame for everything. Like, screw that. I hate that. So, I want to know if he referenced us by name. He said those podcast clowns have said they're morons. They think Stotts is the only problem. And No said, I can see saying Stotts has a hand in the struggles, but not all of it. How many times have I said that's exactly what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. God, I'm going to have to DM him.
He quote tweeted a bunch of Jason Peterson's donkey things last night and agreeing with him. And so that's not very good behavior either.
Yeah. I'll send a DM and I'll let you guys know how it goes on the post-game stream tomorrow. We'll have that Bucks Blazers post-game stream. I'll give you an update. But I guess I need to talk to him one-on-one or something so he really gets it. Maybe he hasn't seen me say it at him 10 times because he keeps misquoting me. But, this apparently isn't dead. I wasn't planning on talking about this today. And then we get talked about on air again. So we're going to have to follow that up.
We're the ones chasing clout. Like, we didn't do anything.
Yeah.
That's what makes me so mad. Like, we're not out here trying to, I don't care if they listen to our show or not. Like, we're not trying to get our followers. I love our followers we have. Mm-hmm. And if this is all we ever get, great. Like,
we got a lot of people in here for a podcast.
We got the true people in here.
Yep.
I just wish they would use, I actually wish they would use our names and Blazers Uprise when they talk about us, because they're obviously talking about us.
Oh, I know, man. We're the only podcasters that think Stotts has something to do. Other peeps and plaid, kind of, but we're obviously the most visible.
They only do because they're kind of being influenced by, they're starting to see what we say, because before the season started or before we started this podcast, they never used to really say anything bad about Stotts either. So, so I just don't understand. Well, one, the whole premise of how like a whole group of people can just be dismissed because someone thinks that Stotts isn't the problem, right? Because we can say like, well, why did Stotts not switch pick and roll at the end of the Philly game, right? Mm-hmm. And they'll be like, oh, these clowns think Stotts is the problem. Oh, they don't have an answer to what we're talking about. Yeah. Like we're like speaking truths and trying to break down situations in the games and stuff like that. I mean, we're not doing it a disrespectful way or anything.
The people watching us know what we're about. I don't have to like really explain it. They know what we're about. I just hate the fake narratives. I just hate when people make up stuff that I apparently think and create false narratives. That's my problem. Don't create false narratives to try and like make us sound bad on air. That's it. That's the only thing.
But then if you call us clowns based on that fake narrative too, like. And you don't have, I mean, Chad's never been able to go back at us with anything basketball related. Mm-hmm. He just like quote tweets other people and calls us clowns and puts the little clown emoji.
I'm going to have to contact NBC Sports Northwest, man, because he's insulting me on air. That shouldn't stand. I'm going to ask that they have better standards. Maybe hold their
Rip City Radio too.
Rip City Radio. I mean, like, dude, I've played nice. I'm tired of playing nice. I'm being called a moron and an idiot on air for something that I don't even think, for something that he made up. Even though I've tried to correct him numerous times, it's silly. So I'm not gonna play that. I'm gonna like, I'm a big boy, Chad. Okay, you're not gonna bully me just because I'm a podcaster and you're on TV, buddy.
Wait, he wasn't talking about you.
Who else would he be talking about? He just said
it. I know, but that's what they all say. That's why he doesn't use your name, though. Because then he always will just use that. That'll be his excuse to his bosses, like.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah.
But this is bullying 101, and I think that's what you should say is they are bullying us because they do not agree with our opinions. We've already been blocked now by Jason Peterson and Pinwheel Empire.
Yeah, I didn't.
For
Yeah,
not doing anything wrong. And yeah,
yeah, I didn't. I didn't want to make this huge segment, so let's move on.
right.
Um,
Okay.
let's move on. Picks against the spread. We got 60 people in here, so we'll have a lot of picks. For those of you who don't know, every podcast we do a segment where we pick games against the spread. You can pick in chat while we pull up the games. We got graphics and everything for this. At the end of the season, if chat wins, we'll do some big giveaway. If me or Eric wins, we need to create a bet for it, and we want to do like small little like day-to-day bets, and then have some like big bet where like if we both lose, we run some huge giveaway for chat, like huge giveaway, and then if one of us wins, then the other has to do something. I don't know, we're still sorting it out, but until then, we're picking games against the spread. So we're gonna jump into our very first game. We got that was the wrong stinger. But anyway.
No, Dame Dollar, you guys did not win the double down. We all lost our double down.
Yeah, so before we get into the first game, how did we do on Wednesday?
Wednesday was brutal, man.
Yeah, it was brutal, dude. None of it made sense.
So let me bring it up here. You were the best out of the three of us with a 3-7 record. Chat and myself went 2-8.
That's horrible,
including our double down.
So what's our overall records now? Do you have that?
Yeah, I'm still leading at 88 and 80, so
Okay,
still 8 games above
yeah.
500. You're at 85 and 83, and Chat has fallen now 10 games below 500 after squeaking above 500 recently at 73 and 83. So Chat gotta pick it up, man.
Alrighty. First game. I think my little transition slides are maybe backwards here. I don't know why, but yeah, I don't know why that is. But anyway, we got Wizards, Hawks. This is a pick'em. This is our first pick'em of the year. We actually have 2 of these today. So basically, who do you think will win is what it is. We got the Wizards at home. The team on bottom's at home. I'm rolling with the Wizards at home. I don't know. They've beaten some good teams. I think that, I don't know, this unit plays well together. They've been overachieving, but if they continue to overachieve, I think they can handle this Hawks team. So I got the Wizards there.
Yeah, I'm also taking the Wizards at home. Couple crappy teams. I'll just take the home team.
Yep, pick them. And Eric's the one keeping track of the votes in chat. Yeah. So next game we got. Yay, that slide was right. All right, we got the Knicks in Madison Square Garden taking on the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans are favored on the road by 4.5 points. I'm rolling with the Knicks. If they're at home, I think these teams are kind of evenly matched. The Knicks have been playing better the past like 3-4 weeks or so. So I think this is a pretty easy pick for the New York Knicks. What do you got, Eric?
Yeah, I think I want to say earlier in the week they played in New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
And it was a similar spread.
What happened with your audio? My goodness, it's staticky.
My audio?
Yeah, your audio went staticky. I don't know what happened. But
anyways,
I was turned down a little bit.
Yeah, I think New Orleans is probably going to win this game, but I like New York to keep it close at home, so I'll take the Knicks as well.
Alrighty. Going into the next game, I don't know what's up with Eric's audio. I'm sure you guys hear that as well. But we got Brooklyn. That's still the wrong sticker. I don't know. We got Brooklyn going up against the Heat. We got the Heat favored by 3.5 points on the road in Brooklyn. This is actually going to be my double down pick. So our double down picks, basically, it's worth 2 wins if we get it right, 2 losses if we get it wrong. But I got the Heat on the road beating the Brooklyn Nets. The Heat have been killing it lately. They've been playing amazing basketball. The Nets are still without Kyrie, I believe. So I think this is a pretty easy pick for the Heat, even though they're 3.5 favorites on the road. Who do you got, Eric?
I don't like the way Brooklyn's played all year, and I'll take the better team.
Alrighty. I'm going to mute your mic when I talk because that static's bad. I don't know what's going on, man.
There's nothing on my end, so I don't know.
Okay, that's better. There we go. I don't know what you just did, but that's better. All right.
I didn't do anything.
I-
No, I'm serious. I
no,
haven't
I
done
know.
anything.
I watched you. I know you didn't do anything. I don't know what happened. I don't know why that was a thing. It happened last stream too. I don't know why that's been a thing. But anyway, Grizzlies at home going against the Spurs. Second pick 'em of the day. I'm rolling with the Grizzlies. I've picked against the Spurs. It's worked out for me. But the Grizzlies are playing decent basketball too. They're actually ahead of us in the standings, which is kind of ridiculous. But I'm rolling with the Grizzlies. Who you got, Eric?
I'm gonna take San Antonio. They just came off beating Boston in Boston, and they won. I forgot who they beat at home. Oh, it was Milwaukee at home the game before that. So I think they're playing a little better lately. And a pick 'em. I'm gonna take the hot team, the Spurs.
Alrighty. What's up, Eric?
Well,
Glad you can tune in.
let me try to catch up on chat real quick with their picks.
Alrighty, I'll roll into the next one. While you do that, we got the Chicago Bulls at home going up against the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers are favored by 3 points. I might surprise people with this pick, but I'm rolling with the Chicago Bulls. I've been struggling lately, so some of these picks are going against my gut a little bit. It's just like my gut would definitely say the Pacers here, better team, not a huge spread, even though they're on the road. But stuff hasn't made sense in the NBA lately. So this pick doesn't make sense, but that might make it make a ton of sense, if you know what I mean. So I'm rolling with the Bulls. Who you got?
I'm taking the Pacers. I just think they're a better team. I want to say Wendell Carter might have gotten hurt last game for the Bulls.
He did.
But yeah, you're right though. Like every game that's like, oh man, this is an obvious pick. It seems like doesn't go in our favor
I
lately.
know. See, the logic that you're using right now, I've been using that logic, and it's been working against me.
Yeah.
So I'm not really using logic anymore. There's a couple other picks that I don't think makes much sense.
I'm not ready to stop because that last Wednesday was the worst I've done this
That's
season.
the
So
worst
like,
we've all done collectively.
so I'm just gonna brush that off as one bad game. But yeah.
Alrighty. Zacho's doubling down on the Pacers. That'll be their double down. That'll be their double down pick. Because Zacho's the homie. He's with us on Twitter a lot. So we'll let him pick the double down for this game. That's chat's double down pick. They're doubling down on the Pacers. And next game we got is the Charlotte Hornets and the Utah Jazz. This game is in Utah. Utah's favored by 12. Normally I'd go with the Charlotte Hornets, but as I said, stuff hasn't made sense lately. The Jazz recently blew out, I forget who they blew out, but they recently blew out someone.
I think it was the Knicks.
Yeah, and I think I picked the Knicks in that game.
Yeah.
Jazz blew them out, so I'm rolling with the Jazz this game. We'll see if they can blow out the Hornets.
I'm going to go with Charlotte. I don't know about blowing two teams out in a row, and Charlotte's not a bad team this year. So I'll just take the 12 points.
Yeah, that altitude is tough, man. That altitude is tough to play in, especially for a team from Charlotte, which I think is sea level. I'm not sure.
Wow. Chat's popping with the picks today. This is
good luck keeping up with that, man.
And it's it's like Jazz Hornets, Charlotte Jazz.
Hey, I love it. I got the graphics. I do the graphics. Eric has to keep track of that stuff. Here we go. We got Phoenix against Orlando. Phoenix is favored by 3.5 points at home. I'm rolling with the Magic. Not even gonna explain it, because the more I explain, the more likely my picks are wrong. So I'm going to explain less, and hopefully that works out for me. So there we go. Magic, what do you got?
I'm also taking the Magic. I still am not buying Phoenix at all, and they played a lot of close games lately, so I'll just take the Magic. Yep. Magic have been playing well. We both doubled down on Washington and getting 9.5 in Orlando, and they kicked the crap out of them.
Exactly.
So.
Yep. Token Fat Guy says, so do you think the Blazers will make a move or stand still? I'll respond that in the next episode of Blazers Pulse, because I asked you guys how many trades do you think they'll make, so I'll include that poll question, go over the results, go over some of your content or comments, and then I'll give my comments and my thoughts on that poll question. So that should be coming this weekend. I still got to do a mailbag. I've recorded it. I recorded a couple days ago. Still got to edit it. But that's what we got. So if you want to know, should have that Pulse episode out soon for you. Next game we got is the Lakers going on the road to face the Dallas Mavericks. Now, Anthony Davis will not play, I
Not playing.
believe.
Yeah.
So therefore, I got the Dallas Mavericks.
Porzingis is out too.
I got the Dallas Mavericks. Porzingis, I honestly think has been overrated this year. I don't think he's been a huge catalyst in their success. I mean, they've played solid basketball without Porzingis. So, Anthony Davis, losing him is a lot bigger blow than the Mavericks losing Kristaps Porzingis. With the Mavericks at home and the Lakers being favored by 2 points without Anthony Davis, I thought this was a pretty easy Dallas Mavericks pick. Eric, what do you got?
I am doubling down against you tonight, my friend. I'm going with the Lakers.
So I could gain 3 games on this.
Yeah. I'm still.
You're nervous about this one. I see it.
Yeah, this may be dumb, but I just think the Lakers are a better team than the Mavericks, and that they'll get this one. Getting 2 points on the road, all they have to do is win or lose by 1, and everyone else is picking the Mavs. So you go against the public usually when you bet. It's good, so we'll see. Yeah, but this could be a big swing in our standings here.
Definitely. I gotta take that lead. I want to take that lead after this. I want to go 10-0, 11-0 with my double down pick. That's the goal. So anyway, second to last game. We had 10 games today. Ton of games today. I think it's a little better next week. We'll see. Less graphics for me. I wouldn't complain about that, to be honest. Here we go. We got Kings in Sacramento going up against the Milwaukee Bucks, and this might surprise you, but I'm going with the Kings. I've gone with the Bucks almost every time on the road this season, but stuff hasn't made sense lately, so I'm going with the Sacramento Kings. The Bucks have kind of struggled lately. They haven't been playing at the same high octane level as they have in the past. Therefore, I'm rolling with the Kings.
I'm going to take the Bucks.
The Bucks. See, I feel like I could predict, if I got 10 games, I could predict, 8 of your picks. 8 of the 10, to be honest. But, see, because we've bet for this all season long.
I'm 8 games over 500. That's pretty good against the spread, and that's with a brutal week going on. So
True. I feel like now the Bucks are going to blow out the Kings, so I'm be like, damn.
Yeah. It looks like Chat's taking Milwaukee as well.
Yeah, I'm not surprised with that one. Alrighty. Last game. First time we've bet on the Clippers in a while because I had to download the logo. But there we go. Clippers versus the Warriors. Clippers are favored by 13.5 points. I'm rolling with the Clippers. I'm not betting Milwaukee with an 8.5 point spread, but I'll bet the Clippers with a 13.5 point spread. I'm done trying to be logical. Logic isn't working. So I got the Clippers. We'll see how this goes. If I do really well today, then I'm not using logic for the rest of the season. If I struggle, then I'll go back to trying to be logical and whatnot. But I got the Clippers with their 13.5 point favorites against the Warriors. Who do you got?
I'm also taking the Clippers. I think everyone's playing tonight, so I'll trust that they can blow out the crappy Golden State Warriors team.
Yep. That's a pretty big spread, but I'm rolling with it. So anyway, that's our picks against the spread. Hopefully you were able to keep up with who Chat was rolling with. Indiana is the double down team. That's Zacho. We'll see if Zacho comes through clutch for Chat, because Chat definitely needs all the help they can get right now. Anyway, so apparently the New York Knicks want Andre Drummond. Okay, so that came across my notification feed a little bit before we went live. And I just thought that was funny. They're so desperate for a star. It almost seems like they're connected to everyone and get no one. So it was like, oh, the Knicks want Andre Drummond. Of course they do. Andre Drummond's about to be a free agent. I could see them trading for Andre Drummond, trading like Mitchell Robinson and RJ Barrett, which would be absolutely ridiculously stupid of them. And then Andre Drummond leaves in free agency. That would be such a New York Knicks thing to do. That would be funny as hell. I was just like, when I saw that they were connected to him, it made me laugh, man.
Yeah, they would do something dumb like trade Mitchell Robinson and a bunch of young guys for Drummond at a first-round pick or something. That'd just be such a bad move. The team is not ready. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. We talked about Atlanta, I think it was last week, trading for Drummond. And I can kind of see that because they have most of their pieces in place. They have a pretty balanced roster. They're just missing a center if everyone develops, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas the Knicks, they already have like 18 bigs, and they they definitely do not need a guy like Drummond. They need like more like guards and wings and stuff. Not not Drummond. So I could see them wasting all their assets to add yet
Yeah,
another big. But
I don't understand it, man. I mean, like, is that going to help you land a free agent? Even if it did, there's not good free agents available this year. Like,
well, I don't even know. Like I guess it depends on who they sent out, but some of those guys are on 1 year deals and some of them aren't. So they might not even have that much cap space if they re-sign Drummond.
Julius
Uh,
Randle, I think, is like the main guy who's on a 2 year deal with a third-year team option, making like
like
18, 19
18
million
or
dollars
something.
a
Yeah.
year. I mean, that could be a sneaky Blazers trade target, but he's a horrible defender and he has not been efficient this year. He has not been worth that contract for them.
Mm-mm.
Maybe that's just like him playing with a bad team, having to deal with defenses loading up on him more than ever. But I mean, Julius Randle is just not a winning player. In my opinion, he's not a player who helps you win. I don't think he's ever played a playoff game in his entire career, or even been close to the playoffs. He played for the Lakers and the Pelicans. Now the Knicks, obviously, he's playing for bad teams, but I don't know, man. I mean, you're gonna pair Julius Randle with Andre Drummond. I feel like that would be the most overrated front court in the league. Like, Detroit Pistons fans, I've seen multiple fans of theirs say Andre Drummond puts up empty stats, which it seems like you get that argument with a lot of different centers.
Yeah, it's
I don't
always
know. You
centers
know,
too.
so it's hard to tell like how much of that is justified and how much of that is just fans being frustrated with their
Well,
season or whatever.
I think you said something that was pretty spot on a while back where we were talking about good players putting up bad numbers, like Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Davis not making the playoffs or whatever. And you talked about how it's much harder for a big to affect the winningness of a team. And it's probably the case with like Drummond and Griffin and stuff because they don't have like I guess they have Derrick Rose this year, but Griffin
Yeah,
hasn't been healthy. But they have their best guard the last few years has been Reggie Jackson, you know, who's not a great player. So,
yeah.
like
Well,
if you put like a good if you put like CJ or something on that team, they would be way better, you
oh
know.
yeah. My
Uh,
point was my point was basically it's hard for a big to be the best player on the team and carry that team because
right.
they're not going to create for themselves from the perimeter. You're not going to be able to just give them the ball and isolate or just run, take advantage of bad pick and roll defense with them being the ball handler, you know what I mean? Like guards have that luxury. I feel like it's easier to ride a perimeter player or a guy that can play on the perimeter. It's easier to ride them to wins, to more
Mhm.
productive basketball than it is with a big like a Karl Anthony Towns or an Andre Drummond. So that's the thing is he needs to be paired with an all-star level guard, the all-star level wing, and that could possibly get you close to a contender. I think Atlanta is a very intriguing situation for Drummond. I think that would be the best situation for him. You got Trey Young running pick and roll with Andre Drummond. That would be a really good combination. I think they would fit each other well. They'd need to add to that and try and like either develop another star internally or acquire another star down the line. But that would be the start of something really good there in Atlanta. That would be two guys that fit each other.
I think there's teams that can't really get Drummond that he'd be better on, like Boston. Um, but yeah, I think in terms of teams that have the assets to get him and the contracts, I think you're right. But I would love to see him with like Kemba and
Yeah.
Tatum and stuff like that. Like just get like a big time center in there. Um, but Drummond's like I don't know. He's athletic and stuff. It's just he doesn't have a lot of like post moves. He scores a lot the way his Whiteside does. So actually, well, if you take out Whiteside shooting threes this year,
Oh, I know, 2 for 3. Yeah.
but no, but like he doesn't really have a jump shot, but like he does like a lot of little flip shots and the hook shots in the key, you know, get a good position and just turn around and shooting or putbacks and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, he's not really great for like certain offenses, like Whiteside's putting up stats in our offense, obviously, but like in a flow offense or one that requires like isolation a lot and stuff, I don't know if he's the best fit for that. But yeah, if he had a good pick and roll threat that can lob to him and stuff like that, then he'd be a good addition to most teams.
Yep. Did you guys have an ad play for you a little bit ago? Because I'm watching my stream, keeping up with the chat on my phone, and for the first time ever, I think I had an ad play on this stream. So did you guys get that too? Because
I didn't get it on mine.
yeah, I've never seen that before. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was just me. I did last night, not today. Said Russell first round exit Westbrook. Yeah, I don't know. That was strange. I've just never dealt with that before. So I was just curious if you guys had the same thing on your end or if it was just me. But yeah,
it's like random, I guess. Who gets it?
I guess. Yeah, I don't know because I'm not controlling that. I just put ads on the video, at the start. That's it. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see Andre Drummond play out. I think he will end up getting traded. A sneaky team for him is Washington. Okay, because Washington has shown that they don't really want to rebuild, and I feel like they might go out and get Andre Drummond thinking that, okay, next season we'll have John Wall back. Hopefully we can get him back to playing like an all-star point guard, which might be a delusional hope of theirs, but I feel like they might think they can get him back to, being the normal John Wall. Then you got Bradley Beal, you got Wagner there who could play the power forward. Maybe you trade out Thomas Bryant and a pick. That would be a decent start for a package. Attach Jan Mahimi as expiring contract for Detroit. I feel like Washington might try and get back into the playoff picture by trying to create a big three of, for them, hopefully a healthy, productive John Wall, Bradley Beal, and Andre Drummond. Because they just re-signed Bradley Beal. They could have looked to trade him and hit the rebuild button this season. They already have some decent young talent, but they decided to extend him for 2 more years, which means they can't trade him all season long. So I feel like Washington might be a team that has the right pieces to make a trade for Andre Drummond and might go out there and think like, okay, we're going to go get him. We're still going to be a lottery team this year, but next year with those 3 could make some noise.
Yeah, that's interesting because I felt like, they had Gortat for a while, but like they haven't really had like a really good all-star level center with those 2 or big man even. They made that big trade for Ariza last year, which didn't work out at all. They traded Porter last year, who was actually somewhat of a good fit with those guys.
Yeah.
And then they traded Oubre for nothing.
Big
which was
mistake,
dumb.
man. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, they're 3 through 5. They're outside of like 1-year outliers. Like they had Pierce who played well for them, won them a playoff series with that I call game shot.
Yeah.
when they asked if he called bank.
Yeah.
But they haven't really done a great job of putting the right pieces around Beal and Wall, in my opinion. Morris was okay, but he's not like
I will say this though. They've gotten some good young talent for very, very cheap in the past year. They got Thomas Bryant basically off of free agency and turned him into a legit starting center. They got Wagner basically for free from the Lakers. It was part of the Lakers trying to like clear cap space with some cap maneuvers to be able to sign Kawhi Leonard after trading for Anthony Davis. So they gave Wagner to Washington for free, and Wagner's been terrific. I think Rui, I'm a huge Rui fan. I think taking him at 9th was good value based on what I've seen from him this season. Jordan McRae has been terrific this year. Like, they've gotten some guys for very, very cheap. It's something that I wish Neil Olshey did a little bit better, was acquire, pick up some of these guys. Would have been awesome to have Thomas Bryant right now. Would be awesome to have been able to try and play a part in that trade and get Wagner. Because that's the thing, if they traded for Drummond, man, you could have John Wall, Bradley Beal, Rui Hachimura, Wagner, and Drummond. That would be a good lineup. That would be a scary lineup.
Don't forget I have to credit Tommy Thompson for this one. Davis Bertans too,
Davis Bertans, they got.
and they got him for free because San Antonio was
Mm-hmm.
trying to sign Marcus Morris, and then so they cleared a
Yeah.
$7 million by that trade, so
Even
they could sign Morris, and then Morris
Mhm.
backs out, and
even Pasisniks,
yeah,
I think that's how you say his name, Pasisniks. They picked him up for basically free first round draft pick who ended up being a free agent because he wanted to come to the NBA and Philadelphia didn't want him, so they had to release the rights to him. And then he's been terrific. He's on a two-way contract, but he'll end up on the main roster. He's a good backup center. Like that, Washington's done a solid job the past like 7-8 months or so. And I feel like they might look at some of their young talent and be like, okay, we got the future taken care of. We still got some good players now. Hopefully John Wall will come back and be healthy. Maybe go get Andre Drummond. Maybe hope Hachimura and Wagner can blow up and contribute next to Beal and Wall. Like that could be the route for them to go.
yeah, I just don't. I'm not that. I wasn't that high on John Wall before the injury, so now that he's trying to come back from an Achilles, he's got to be close to like 30 now, right?
Yeah, it's something like that. Wall? He won't be the same, I don't think. They'd also have Bertans off the bench. I keep forgetting Bertans and Pasisniks, backup center, McRae off the bench.
Just
like they'd have a solid
29.
bench. 29. Yeah, whenever somebody who like relies so much on speed like that, that's when it's the toughest to have an Achilles injury like he did.
And he's never been a good shooter from at least from like 3-point range. So,
and that might be what he's working on right now, though.
Yeah, that's true. I just don't know about that team. They seem to be better without Wall, and that's always a red flag to me. Like even though they suck, but like they play a better style basketball. You know, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that a couple years ago when he got hurt, everyone on the team was like trashing him and talking about how much better things are when he wasn't around and all that stuff. So doesn't seem like the best leader like Dame is. So hopefully for their sake, he can come back from that and be somewhat close to the player he was, because basically they're screwed if he doesn't, because he's making over $40 million.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the worst contract in the league, man. Worst contract in the league. Like if they could get out from that, I think they would, and then they'd build around like Beal and Drummond if they could get him. But I just think that's a sneaky destination for Andre Drummond, a destination nobody's talking about. Indiana, or not Indiana, Washington for sure. So we don't have anything else planned for this podcast or anything you want to talk about. Do you want to take questions from chat? We can take questions from chat. Let's take questions from chat.
Someone keeps mentioning Aaron Gordon. I don't know if that was a new rumor from today. But yeah, both Tori and I hate Aaron Gordon. We don't think he's a good fit at all. It'd probably be okay if we got him for relatively cheap just to try see if we can improve his game at all. But I was not like trading CJ for him would be an absolute disaster.
Yeah. Yeah, no, hell no. Aaron Gordon's overrated. Me and Eric have never been a fan of his. Not efficient. Doesn't defend well. Doesn't shoot threes well.
Yep.
Not a good combination.
Dion asks what the trade is you most want to happen.
Mine is for Otto Porter Jr. Hassan Whiteside straight up for Otto Porter Jr. What's yours?
Mine is the Hassan Whiteside for Covington and Jang.
Yeah. If like we could substitute Bazemore into one of those deals and like add, maybe Tolliver
both
and Hezonja, yeah, I'd love to get both those guys. Like Jang, Covington, and Otto Porter Jr. We'd probably have to give a first round pick for Covington though. That'd be the problem there. But like make it like top 16 protected. So like if we're the 8th seed, we'd still keep our pick and then it'd roll over to 2021. Or you could trade a 2021 first round pick and keep our 2020 because thinking that our 2021 first round pick is going to be worse than our 2020 first round pick.
Even though Covington's not like the best player available, he fits our defensive need. You can hit threes. He shoots them at a high volume too. And then he's under contract for like 11 to 12 million for 2 more years after this one. So you're basically getting a guy who's going to help for this year and 2 more years after this one. So that's why I like Covington so much compared to like Porter Jr. He's up after next year, so like, what do you re-sign him for? Is it going to take $20 million to re-sign him again, or is he like not anywhere near as good of a player as he has been? So you get him for cheaper, or is it a case where he's injured and you have to dump him?
Yeah.
And I know Covington has also had that problem too with injuries, but not quite to that extent. And also, like I said, his contract is less than half of Porter's. And then I like Jang as just a solid backup big with a contract available to trade. I think that's the perfect trade in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, there's like if Karl Anthony Towns became available, that would be way higher on my priority list than Covington and Jang.
We're talking like realistic trades.
Yeah, like trades that can actually happen.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. What else you guys got for us? Bogdanovich would be an interesting target. Ben Hewitt brought him up. Tori, what's your obsession with Otto? He hasn't had good production in 2 years almost now. He had a solid season last year. When he's healthy, he's a good player. Let me look up his stats because I'll make a case for him right now. I need to make a case for him because I've been talking about him on Twitter a bit and people don't really understand it, and I feel like I can really go in depth. All right, so last season, 30 minutes per game. Only played 56 games. The problem is like his injury issues, but I'll talk about why I don't think it's much of a problem as people think. 14 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 2 assists, but he shot 50% from 2, 47% from the field, 40.5% from 3. The last 4 years, including this year, his 3-point percentage has been 43.4%, 44.1%, 40.6%, 40%. That's elite shooting. He can also play defense. He's 6'8". He can play small forward or power forward, can guard multiple positions, can defend well. And he can hit the three at a very high clip. And he's also shown to be able to like handle the ball in a little bit of pick and roll here and there, not a ton, but like he's shown the ability to like handle the ball a little bit. That's the perfect type of player for the Portland Trail Blazers. That's the perfect type of guy they need, a guy that can be an elite three-point shooter to help space the court for Dame, CJ, Nurk, and a guy that can defend, and a guy that can maybe like handle the ball a little bit here and there. The problem is injuries. But the thing is, if he's injured and he doesn't play, he's a $27 million expiring contract next year, which helps us have salary to match if we want to trade for a star making around, 30, maybe even $35 million a year. If we let our expiring contracts walk this year, then we won't have the salary to trade out for a star making $30 million. We'd have to trade out Nurkic and Hood and like a bunch of other guys to even get close to matching that. I'm not even sure we could even get there if that was the case. So we'd have to trade like one of CJ or Dame in order to get a star next year if we don't add salary for next season, if that makes sense. It basically just makes it easy for us to have the flexibility to trade for a star next season. It would put us in the same position we are right now. We got $27 million expiring contract, $19 million expiring contract. If a team's trying to trade a star, they want young assets back, and then they want an expiring contract. Like, we'd have to match salary. We'd have to give up, if we're trading for $30 million in salary, we'd have to give up at least $24 million. Usually young assets, draft picks don't have any monetary value. Young assets usually are guys on rookie deals, Simons, Little, Collins making only $2 to $3 million per year, so they're not going to come close to matching salary. So usually it's a combination of young assets, picks, and an expiring contract for a star player. Getting Otto Porter Jr., if he has a player option for next year, $27 million, he's going to accept that. Okay, so if he plays, he'd be the perfect fit for us. If not, we could still trade him out as an expiring contract and bring in a star or bring in a better player, if that makes sense. Because the thing is, whatever team trades a good player probably isn't going to care who they get back. They just want an expiring contract because they want to end up saving money to the offseason. Usually the team's trading a star. Their season is basically lost anyway, so they don't care about the player. They just care about the contract. So it doesn't matter if Otto Porter Jr. is hurt or not. His contract would still help us acquire a star if we attached value to it. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yep, complete sense to me.
Yep.
We'll see if Olshey feels the same way.
Yep.
So Squeeze 75 says, huge Blazer fan, but I wasn't a fan of the roster this year despite the injuries. I wasn't a fan of not having a true wing defender. And that's kind of our points with getting Otto Porter Jr. or Robert Covington type players, where they can guard a Kawhi or a Paul George and make up for some of Dame and CJ's liabilities, and at the same time be a better three-point threat than we've had at previous wing defenders, at least more consistent. And I think that would just be a huge home run if we got one or two of those type of players who can knock down a three and play lockdown defense. I mean, Robert Covington was either first or second all defensive NBA 2 years ago. So like, not only is he a good defender, but he's like recognized as a good defender too. Like,
yeah,
Aminu and Harkless never. I don't even know if they got votes for all defensive NBA team. Like one vote. Like Aminu, I think got one vote 1 year or something. But like those guys aren't even close to sniffing their level defensively. So like that's why I'm so high on guys like that. Whereas in the past I hadn't been the hugest Robert Covington fan, but if we're gonna keep with the Dame and CJ thing, which it looks like we probably will, you've got to have the guys around him that fit their needs defensively. And because if you don't, look at what happens this year.
Exactly.
Our defense just completely falls apart.
So like part of it, is obviously we need talented players, but we need guys who fit in. We need 3 and D players. Robert Covington, Otto Porter Jr., 3 and 4, perfect forwards. I think they'd probably be a little bit better defensively than Harkless and Aminu, and they'd surely be a lot better offensively than those guys. And then you add Nurk to that, and then developing Simons off the bench. I feel like we'd have a better team than we did last year with those guys for sure.
And that's the thing about if you had Hood, Covington, and Porter, you'd have 3 guys that can basically guard 1 through 4, and you like that just creates so much flexibility, and you could stagger Dame and CJ more, and you'd have like elite defensive lineups with we add Nurk in there and then just one of Dame and CJ and in late game situations too, when you know you're going to call a timeout after a possession, you wouldn't even have to have Dame and CJ in the game in some of those situations. Like this year we don't really have a choice, but like if we had that much versatility, they could just switch all picks and like we would be a much better team defensively.
Yep, 100%. Think about the bench. If we traded like Bazemore, Hazonia, Tolliver, and a draft pick for Covington and Jang, and then if we traded Hassan Whiteside straight across for Otto Porter Jr., because I don't think Chicago is going to want to pay Otto Porter Jr. $27 million next season because they're not, in the same position we are. They're not winning games. They're kind of stuck in a rebuild, even though they're signing some veterans, Thaddeus Young, Thomas Satoransky. They traded for Otto Porter Jr. They're just kind of in a weird spot. But if we did that, starting lineup, Dame Lillard, CJ McCollum, Robert Covington, Otto Porter Jr., Yusuf Nurkic next year. What's good about that is it doesn't put pressure on Rodney Hood. Rodney Hood can slowly work his way back in. He's shown to have issues with his confidence before. I don't want to throw him back into the fire as the starting small forward coming off this injury. But say Rodney Hood gets back to kind of what he was doing this year. Obviously not as good. He was absolutely insane this year. But just think about this bench, man. Anthony in year 3, Rodney Hood, Zach Collins, Gorgie Jang. That bench would be really, really good. That would be
Dame or CJ playing with them all the time.
Yep. That would be a really, really, really good bench. And we'd have the perfect starting lineup in terms of fit, in terms of having the right combination of certain types of players, in terms of skill sets. I think that team, I mean, maybe not with this coach, I think that team with maybe an upgraded coach too would be an absolute contender. Would be right up there. Would be at least as good as Denver is now. Would be at least as good as Dallas is now. Would be a really, really good team. Maybe even with Stotts, because a lot of those players kind of help offset some of the weaknesses I think Stotts has. That roster would be terrific.
Yeah, and then you'd have Little developing still, and then you have maybe re-sign Scal and keep developing him. And you still have the the full, or depending on how the contracts worked out, you might only have the tax mid-level exception.
Yeah.
But you'd have that to add whatever hole you have. So like if you think you need like a ball handler or something, you could go get a backup point guard, or you could go add another wing depth to that in case Hood's not ready. Well, and then, or like a 3-4 hybrid type guy, like a Marvin Williams or something you could pick up for cheap.
Well, that's the thing, though, is we'd have tons of flexibility. We'd have 3 young blue chip prospects, in my opinion, with Simons, Little, and Collins. We'd have, if we trade our 2020 first, and then next year we could trade our 2021 first, 2023 first, we'd have all our future picks at that point. We'd have a $27 million expiring contract with Porter. We'd have a $16 million expiring contract with Jang. Like, we would have a really good lineup that would have the flexibility and the assets to, like, go out and make a huge upgrade. Even though that roster, I think, is already really, really good. So that's the position I want to be in next year. So that's my dream, is to get Jang with Covington, giving up, like, our 2020 first, like, lottery protected, top 16 protected, whatever. And then Otto Porter Jr. as well, and then he gets healthy. I think that's the best case scenario. I think that would be a perfect, just setting us up for next year in terms of the roster we'd have next year if everybody was healthy, and then the moves we could make off of it would be perfect.
Completely agree.
So anyway, we're going to wrap up this podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed this podcast. I just sent that DM to Chad Doing. We'll see if he replies. I don't think he'll reply. He's probably in the middle of a show right now. Maybe I'll have to actually tune into his damn show and see if he brings it up, see if he calls me a moron again. But anyway, fun podcast.
I'll try to see if that show is on demand or anything so I can clip it for you.
See it. I asked him, I'm like, you talking trash about me? Hamza, I'm sorry I ignored you this whole podcast. Let's answer a question of Hamza's. I feel bad because I did see his name, but like we have a lot of people in this chat right now. This is the most viewership we've had for podcasts in a while, so maybe Chad Doing is doing us some favors. These guys talking trash are doing us some favors. I don't know.
Like I said, I wish he would just mention Blazers Uprise if he's going to talk about us.
I know.
Get some food.
Doing loves you, Tori. I know he does. Hamza, was there like a question you wanted to ask? We'll end it with that. Henry M, thank you for the $2 donation. He said fire stars. That's all I got. Appreciate the $2 donation.
Hamza was mentioning he wanted to talk about the schedule the next 12 games earlier.
Yeah,
so we have 2 home games. One's against the Bucks and one's against the Hornets, and then we go for that. It's like a 4-game road trip where we have, I think it's like the Rockets, Mavericks, Thunder. I'm spacing on a team. I think we play at West Coast, like maybe the Warriors or Kings. No, we already played the Kings twice there. It must be the Warriors. And then we come home and we have I think we have a long homestand after that. But I think all but the Hornets and the Warriors are playoff teams.
Yeah, let me just give a shout out to Necron99, aka Sammy Boy, for the $1.99 donation. He said fire stars and pie in the face. Pie in the face. All right. I appreciate the donation, bro. We're just going to get a bunch of donations with people saying fire stats with a little something extra.
But yeah, those 12 games, I think 10 of them are against playoff teams or winning teams.
That's brutal, man.
Yeah. And the Hornets and the Warriors are the only 2 that aren't. And the Hornets are not just like an easy out, especially the way we're playing. And Golden State already beat us once, so
I think we go 3-9 over the next 12 games, and we end up. Let me do some quick math: 19-32. Which,
yikes!
How do you recover from that? We'd have to win 31 games in a row just to reach 50 wins. You know what I mean? We'd have to finish 20. What is it? To win 40 games, we'd have to finish 21 and 10 at that point. You know what I mean? Which is possible. Our schedule, starting like February 11th, I think, our schedule, it's 2 games before the All-Star break. Our schedule over the next month and a half, we have a stretch from February 11th to I think March 25th where we play 19 games, and 16 of them are against teams that are currently below 500. And And the 3 that are against winning teams, I think 2 of them are at home, and it's like the Celtics, the Pacers. It's not like the Bucks or the Lakers or the Clippers. Like, it's beatable teams, especially if we're healthy. So that's the thing. Like, these next 12 games, we have to go at least 500, which is going to be extremely, extremely hard with how we're playing. But we gotta go at least 500 and set ourselves up for that easy schedule for maybe being a better team effort deadline, healthier, making a move, whatever.
I don't know if Hamza did this on purpose, but so those 12 games lead to the trade deadline. So if we are 3-9 and 19-32, and we do not make a trade at the trade deadline.
Shout out Russell First Round Exit Westbrook for the $2 donation saying fire Stotts and fire Chad Doing. Oh, that's funny, man. That's funny. It sucks, man. I used to be a fan of his too, and then he's gonna go in there and insult me just because of what I think about Terry Stotts. All right. What were you saying? I had to thank him for the dono.
Yeah, I was saying that those 12 games line up with the 13th game would be the night of the trade deadline, so it would be after the trade deadline. So if we were 3-9 in those and we were 19-32 and we did not make a trade at the trade deadline, we just stood pat and like we're like, oh, Nurk's gonna save us still in a week. That'd be so bad.
Exactly. Yep. Chad is making Tory famous. I'm trying to make I'm grinding on my own, but if Chad's giving me an assist, I'll gladly take it.
Here's the thing. If you want to call us out, fine. Call you out, fine. But don't then turn around and try to say we're trying to we have some sort of motivation or we're trying to do something here. You're the one getting called out, not like.
Oh no! Honestly, I think even they're not really getting any support from their own supporters on a lot of these tweets. That's what I've noticed. I'm getting more support than with my 500 followers than Pinwheel Empire is with their 14,000 or whatever. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't look at it hard enough, but I'm not in the wrong. I confidently say that, man. What coach will replace Terry Stotts? Honestly, Portland would need to do a thorough hiring and interviewing process. You got to be looking for certain qualities in the coach. Maybe you got to look for certain things that you'd want in terms of improvement in terms of the coach. So maybe a coach that holds the players more accountable. Maybe a coach that preaches ball movement a little bit more. Maybe a coach that's more versatile and adaptable in terms of his defensive schemes. Maybe a coach who makes better adjustments. Honestly, there's coaches out there that I probably don't know that would be good options for the team. That's why you have an interview process. The one thing I hate is when people say, oh, if you fire Terry Stotts, you have to know who you'd replace him with. Well, if you're Eric, you own a business, right?
Yeah.
If one of your employees is doing a horrible job, you let them go, right? You might not know who replaces them, but you let them go because they're doing a horrible job, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if they did something fireable, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, as a business owner, if your employee is doing, I don't want to put you on the spot with that. It's just completely hypothetical. Hypothetical. I look at it this way. If I'm managing a business myself and my employee is doing a bad job and hurting the business, then I fire them. I don't know who's going to replace them, but I fire them. And then what do? I have an interview process. And I use that interview process to figure out who I want to hire. It's the same thing with a head coach. I don't know why people always say you have to know who you'd replace him with if you fire him. No, I don't. Definitely not Mark Jackson or Tom Thibodeau, though. Let me just say that.
Yeah, I think it's the worst case scenario is to keep someone simply because you don't know who else to get.
Yeah, exactly.
I fully admit I've done that. Owning a business is really hard sometimes. You have to work, 7 days a week and put in a lot of long hours. For 6 years, I want to say I put in 80, 90 hour weeks every week and never really had days off and stuff like that. So, if I want to go on vacation or something and I have a trip planned and one of my employees is not working out, I'm not going to fire them right before I go on vacation because like I want to go on vacation and not have to stay
Yeah.
home and work at the store. So, but that's like a horrible reason not to fire someone, So like,
Yeah.
um, um, but that's not like no one's getting any personal gain by not firing him other than Jody's checkbook.
Exactly. Which is why
But
we don't think he will be fired. Because that's
yeah,
also
and
what I've heard is like, oh, these podcast guys, here's a message to them. Terry Stotts is not going to get fired. And it's like literally we've sat here on our podcast. Every time we talk about it, we say we don't think
yeah,
Terry Stotts is going to be fired. Part of the
yeah,
reason is Jody Allen just signed him to an extension. And the other part of the reason is I think that Jody Allen and management will just look at it like, oh, this team was really injured, so it's not Terry Stotts' fault. I think that's how they'll look at it. We're not idiots, okay? If you're in here and you're not familiar with us and you're in here because Chad Doing has painted us like idiots, okay? Chad Doing literally just makes stuff up so that he can talk crap about us, okay? Like, we don't think Terry Stotts is going to be fired, but these media guys, I think it was Brian Noe that said it actually, will sit there on the air and be like, the podcast guys who don't like Stotts think there's actually a chance he gets fired. Like, he's not going to get fired. But they don't realize that. So they say some, so they're on some moronic stuff or whatever. We literally sit here and say we don't think Terry Stotts is going to get fired, but
he's not going to get fired. I'm on record. He will not get fired this year. He has an excuse this year, but that's my problem. Is shouldn't a coach that's like basically unfireable be getting criticism for doing a bad job? Like, I mean, if he just mails it in and takes his paycheck, like, shouldn't he be called out on that? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Who would have thought that the local guys get the attention from the media guys? Yeah, it's been a weird season all around, man. This whole thing's been weird. He makes strawman arguments for us so that he can knock them down and make people like us look stupid. That's a great point by Russell, first round exit West.
That's exactly what's happening. Because Chad's the guy that fought with No all preseason about how this was still a championship level team, and Brian Noe was like, no, it's not. They don't have the talent they had last year. It's not. And Chad was like, yes, they do. They're gonna be a contender this year. Like, all these pieces are gonna fit great. Blah 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 blah. And then when they didn't, he was like, oh, you can't blame the coach. It's the injuries and all that stuff.
We lose Zach. Even when Rodney Hood was healthy, we lost Zach. And literally, that was the only player we had lost. And it was like, oh, well, you can't expect them to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers without Kevin Love because they're injured. It's like, how do you go from contending team, lose Zach Collins, and all of a sudden you're not supposed to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers when they're missing Kevin Love? Like, that doesn't add up. The math there is not correct. But I mean, to Russell first round exit Westbrook's point, I mean, I literally just DM'd him. I'll see if he responds. I literally said for the millionth time, I don't think Stotts is the only problem with this team at all. Hopefully he gets that. So hopefully he won't go on the air again and say, these guys think Stotts is the only problem. Because I'm tired of hearing it. It's ridiculous. I've literally tweeted at him 10 times, never had a response. And then he'll talk about it as if I think that's the only problem. It's stupid. It's like, God, dude. It's like, okay, I guess it's better for your content, but I don't see how. I don't see how. Couldn't Scottie Pippen bring better energy on the defensive end and better ball movement and winning energy as a coach? Scottie Pippen could be a good coach. I mean, because he knew how to coexist next to kind of an egotistical star, the arguably greatest player of all time, Michael Jordan. But like, he's a guy who played his ass off on defense, knew how to play defense. Was a good passer. You know what I mean? Like, he seems like the type of ex-player that was like really smart that could be a good head coach. That's the thing. That's why you have an interview process, so you kind of try and figure out more and make your decision based off more information than I can personally gather. That's why it's like I don't have to have the answer for who should replace him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know if Scottie Pippen would want to coach though. His son's in high school and about to play college basketball next year, so.
There's a guy who's supposedly, that got brought up in chat, that was supposedly supposed to be a coach on our team right now, and that's Pau Gasol. I think he'd be a good coach someday too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, there's lots of guys. I wouldn't go for like a retread guy. I don't know. I just think we need some sort of different philosophy. It doesn't have to be strictly an offensive or defensive guy. I'd like someone who's balanced with both and who understands both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
And I mean, we keep bringing this up, but like Steve Kerr didn't have any coaching experience. Nick Nurse didn't have any coaching experience. Like everyone was like, you fired Dwayne Casey and you hired Nick Nurse. Who the heck is Nick Nurse? I've never heard of him. He coached in the G League. Like awesome. And then like look at him. They win a championship last year, and yeah,
People
a lot
say
of
it's
that
just
had
due
to do with
Kawhi,
the roster.
but look what they're doing this year.
Yeah.
So
there we go. But they had Kawhi right in the comments.
Yeah.
Right on to you, man. But like, he's the type of coach though. Like he's got really good philosophies on both offense and defense, and he's not afraid to try weird things if his philosophies aren't working. He's not like so rigid in his ways that he won't like try to conform his style to the players he has. Whereas we have, and it's not just Portland. There's lots of coaches that are like this that have their system and they think it works no matter what. And you either have to fit into that or you're not a good player. And I just think when you have injuries like this year and a coach like that, it's just compounding the problem where we should be trying to adapt and get out and run and do stuff that's different than what Coach Stotts usually preaches.
Maybe, when we're struggling to defend the pick and roll, maybe throw a hard trap at the ball handler once in a while, see what happens. Maybe that could get the team out and running and get them easy, fast break. Not just stops, but easy, fast break buckets. When the team's struggling to guard the pick and roll and struggling to score at a half-court offense, maybe throw a trap at a pick and roll ball handler, see if you can get a turnover. And that would solve the pick and roll defense, and then that turnover could lead to transition offense. You wouldn't have to play in the half court and could get easier buckets. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. But we don't see like Stotts like really change things up like that, as you said. So.
Yep. Jose Rodriguez says, to be honest, I don't believe it's due to the head coach. Only the organization as a whole has been playing it smart for the past few years.
Honestly, I think everything has a factor in this. Everyone, everything. Like there's this team should not be 16-23. This team should not be this bad. They shouldn't be losing to the Minnesota Timberwolves when they're playing without Karl and Anthony Towns and have been horrible without him this year. Many people are responsible for the blame. Terry Stotts is one of many people that are responsible for the blame. He's one of many problems, in my opinion. I'm tired of people saying that I think he's the only problem, because it's not even close to that.
Yeah. I mean, if we had Collins and Hood, he would be less of a problem because we have guys who can make up for any coaching deficiencies. So, because those are two smart players, have been in the I guess Collins hasn't really been in the league that long, but he's like a really smart help defender, like knows where to position and stuff like that. Has good footwork and stuff. Like he doesn't need necessarily a coach. He can fit into a system. Yeah. And Hood's the same way. He's a veteran. He can score. He doesn't really need plays called for him to score. But yeah, I was thinking about this last night after our post-game show, and it kind of fits with tying this all back to Brian Windhorst. So his coaching this year kind of fits with the style that Nurk's going to come back and save us and that everything will be okay, right? Because you wonder why he hasn't tried to do different things with different players, or like at least try to switch things up. Or, I mean, there's so many things you can do. Yeah. You could run like a bridge version of a 7 seconds or less offense. You could have more of a trapping situations on defense. You can do like, I forgot what team that was, but they had a guy who every time he got switched onto one of our guards and they shot it, he would just run down the court and they'd throw it down to him when they got the rebound. If we aren't a good defensive rebounding team anyway, you might as well send someone down to get an easy bucket every once in a while. Yeah. Or if you're not a good defensive team, do more traps to try to force turnovers. Because if you're giving up a ton of points, and like I thought I saw a stat last night where the Timberwolves at one point scored on 17 out of 19 possessions. It's like, why not like
I don't think there was an adjustment made any point in time during that stretch.
Try to like force some action to where you get a turnover and get an easy bucket. So at least if they're scoring 17 out of 19 times, the 2 times they don't score, you on the other end or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think the reason it hasn't changed is this team, whether it's Dame and CJ, and I guess you could probably throw Melo in there because he probably thinks this team still has a chance of being good too. But judging on past years, we've gotten off to starts just as bad, if not worse than this. It wasn't the case last year, but the few years before that, we've been close to 10 games under 500. When we traded for Nurk, we were 9 or 10 games under 500. So, like, I think there's just this belief within the team, the organization, the coaching, everyone that, oh, we'll figure it out at some point and it'll be fine. And it just seems different this year. Like it's not a fixable situation like it has been in the past. Yeah. And I think Stotts is coaching in a way like he thinks eventually his system will click in and they'll work, but he just doesn't have the players with the injuries this year to make that work. So I think he needs to try something different, but I don't think he's going to because he thinks, and the players still think, that their system will eventually lead to them figuring it out and making the playoffs, and that's good enough for them, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Christopher Funk, I agree with what you said a little while back. He said Stott seems like a coach that players love because he seems hands-off unless the players kind of coach themselves. That's my impression, very laid back, but too laid back in my opinion. I think that's a good way to put it. That's the thing. With the players coach, it's hard to find that like fine line between holding players accountable and being a players coach. You know, it's hard to find that middle ground. Great coaches find that middle ground in my opinion, but it's too easy to like, you know, especially in the NBA, like be too hard on players and kind of alienate them or be too much of a player's coach and not hold them accountable enough. I think that's the side that Terry Stotts is on, is he doesn't hold players accountable enough. You'll see players like lollygagging out there not giving any effort and they don't get taken out of games. They don't get chewed out on the sideline as far as I can tell. They don't, you know, they'll rotate out at 20% effort. Gary Trent Jr. did that in the game last night. He'll rotate out on the defensive rotation and not even try and close out on the shot. And the guy will hit a wide open three basically because of it when Gary Trent could have gotten there if he gave effort on a closeout and rotation. But then he doesn't get taken out of the game. He doesn't, you know, I didn't see him get chewed out on the sideline. But we'll see Myers Leonard get chewed out if he doesn't shoot. You know what I mean? Like, so we've seen it before with like certain things, with like Myers not shooting the ball. But, like, I haven't seen any of that this year in terms of, like, players getting effort. And I will say this, I might be missing it. You know, he might be chewing them out at timeout at halftime or something. But it's like, if I see a guy lollygagging out there 20%, running 20% on a closeout on the defensive rotation, I'm subbing his ass right out of the game because this team has not been playing with effort. They've been playing with such little effort that at some point he needs to send a message. He needs to stop being the nice guy. He needs to send a message. He needs to sub somebody out for playing lackadaisical. He needs to play Nasir Little more because that dude plays his heart out. He plays with a ton of effort. For some reason, that's the one guy that's been benched, though. Is the one guy that plays with a ton of effort all the time. When effort is our biggest issue lately.
Well, see, that's part of my problem, too, is like it's almost like he's getting in trouble for making mistakes, but his mistakes aren't due to lack of hustle or energy or anything like that. And I am much more forgiving of players like that. Like
and the more he plays, the better he'll get, and he'll make less of those mistakes. It's experience mistakes.
And that's the same thing I've said about Simons this year when people have been like, oh, man, he sucks at defense. Look how we got burnt by Kyrie Irving. Well, Dame and CJ haven't had to guard Kyrie Irving at all in that game. You know, like it's like
Simons wants to get better on defense. I see it, man. He's improved. Like I'm starting to actually really like his on-ball defense. He has the potential to be a good defender, and I think he wants to be. And
the only thing I'll say about that is, I mean, he doesn't have a lot of options right now to sub guys out and put him in because, like, if Bazemore is sucking and Trent does something, like, he can't bench both of them because they don't really have a lot. But to your point, Little's not playing at all. He can play that small forward position. So, like, why not give him some minutes? You have Horde up there. Like, that sends a message. Like, in the third quarter, he did put Horde in for Bazemore after, like, 2 or 3 minutes in the third quarter. And that probably sent a good message to both him and Trent that they weren't doing enough. So hopefully he's learning and he can do that. But yeah, he doesn't have a lot of options, so it's hard. But I just don't like feeling like the coach is using that as an excuse. It's fine for fans and people like that to use it as an excuse, but when it seems like the coach is like, "Oh, what do you want me to do? I don't have any players," like, well, like do something. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Anyway, I love how like 25 minutes ago I was talking about wrapping this up. We got our second win there. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been I think our most watched podcast in a month at least, maybe since like we signed Mello. So appreciate all you guys tuning in and checking us out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at ToryJonesYT. Follow Eric at HoopsJock. Follow the channel at Blazers Uprise. We tweet out when we go live on the Blazers Uprise Twitter account. So that's how you can know when to tune in for our live podcast and our live post-game shows. So we're actually, for real, we're actually out this time. We're actually wrapping this thing up. So anyway, thank you guys.
And thank you guys for supporting our channel and all that stuff. We want you guys to have a place to come in the community. We love our community, and we don't want it to be about name calling and stuff like that. So let's just not stoop to their level and be the better people. And like, I'm gonna call them out if they talk crap, but that doesn't mean we have to be jerks back or say blanketed statements like they make and stuff like that. And let's just make sure we're known as the basketball guys. And I think people are threatened because they have people who actually talk about basketball X's and O's and not just generic fluff stuff. And I just want to say I appreciate all you guys.
Yep, 100%. I echo those sentiments. Yeah, man. Hopefully you guys have a good weekend. We got some football coming up. I'm excited for the Niners game tomorrow. The Seahawks play Sunday. We'll see who's in the NFC Championship game. Might be the Niners versus Seahawks. That would be entertaining.
I'm nervous, man.
I know, dude. I'm nervous. Niners better win tomorrow. It would be interesting to see Niners and Seahawks just to see the community divided, because I know we have some Niner fans in here and we're Niner fans, but I know we have a lot of Seahawks fans in here. And for all the people supporting us, I wouldn't mind seeing the Seahawks in the Super Bowl just for the homies that tune into our stream and support us so very well. So anyway, hopefully you guys have a good week, and we'll catch you tomorrow night with that post-game show. Probably going to have at least one video dropping between now and then. I said that before, and sometimes I lie about that. Sometimes I don't get on that horse. But I'm gonna get on it tonight. I have no distractions tonight, which is rare. So no distractions tonight. We're gonna get you some content. We're gonna get you that post game show tomorrow after that Bucks game, which hopefully we make that post game show entertaining, because I'm expecting a loss, sadly. Anyway, we'll catch you guys later. As always, peace out. Go Blazers.